Today we're making a hot toddy. We're using McKenzie's Pot Still Whiskey coming from Seneca Lakes, from the Finger Lakes region. It's going to be a pretty traditional take on a hot toddy. You can really use any base spirit, but we prefer to keep it a little traditional with this pot distill style, similar to Irish whiskeys. We're using 2 ounces of it. If you want to use the large part of your Japanese jigger, that would be 2 ounces. The reverse size would be 1. And if you look in, there's meniscus lines for 1/2 ounce, 3/4 ounce, 1.5, and so on and so forth. So we're going to be using honey as our sweetener for this. If you don't want to make a honey syrup, which would be equal parts hot water dissolved with your honey, you can use about a bar spoonful of clover honey. Careful not to drip too much. Get that in there. We're going to be using a 1/4 ounce of fresh lemon juice. So if you look inside your jigger, about the 1/2 ounce on the smaller side. It's gonna add some citrus to it. We're gonna add 4 dashes of Angostura Bitters. Put it in a nice dasher for you. Don't be afraid to really get in there. 1, 2, 3, 4. It's gonna add a baking spice and a bitter component to it. Last but not least, we've got some boiling water. So you want to fill it up about 3/4 full, depending on how hot or how diluted you want this. Feel free to adjust in terms of how acidic you like it with your lemon juice. You can add more or less. Same with your sweetness. You can add more or less of your clover honey. Now, being that we did not make a honey syrup out of this, you want to stir really well to make sure that you really dissolve all that honey in there and incorporate it. But not too much, because you don't want it to get too cold. When you think it's about right in terms of integration, you can garnish it. We're going to be using a lemon wheel. Careful for your fingers. You want to score it so that it will sit on your glass. And then traditionally, 4 cloves. Going to be pierced. These are good for aromatics as well. It's going to add more of that really warming baking spice. And 4. So every time you take a sip, you're going to get some really nice aromas in there. And then also a cinnamon stick. Again, for a little more baking spice, a little more aromatics. And voila, a hot toddy.